The ocean wave can serve as another analogy illustrating realization. In the space of variance, let's say that a wave has formed in the ocean as a result of an earthquake. It moves across the surface of the ocean in the form of a hump, but the water itself remains in place. It's not the mass of water that moves, but the realization of the energy potential. Only near the coast does the water spill onto the land. Any other wave behaves in the same way. In this analogy, the sea is the space of variance, and the wave is the material realization. What happens on the one hand, the material realization moves in space and time, and on the other hand, the variants remain in place and exist forever. Does it turn out that everything was, is, and will be? And in fact, why not? In reality, time is as static as space. The passage of time is only felt when the film turns and the frames follow one another. Unroll the film strip and look at all the images together. Where did the time go? All the frames exist simultaneously. Time is static until we start viewing sequentially, frame by frame. This is how it happens in life, which is why the idea that everything comes and goes is deeply ingrained in our minds. In fact, everything that is written in the field of information has always been there and will always remain. Lifelines exist like movies. What happened did not disappear but remained. What will be there is already there now. The current segment of life is a material realization of the space of variance in a given segment of the lifeline. Many may express their indignation by asking, how is it possible that an infinite number of variants of my destiny exist permanently? Who and why might need it? God, natural laws? Why? Then try to imagine a point on a coordinate plane. Back in school, we were offered the following model. A point on a plane can have any x and y coordinates. Note any from less to more infinite. Why doesn't it occur to anyone to ask the question, why can the point have coordinates? Now imagine how a point travels along the function line and ask yourself, how can it be that the path I have traveled has always existed and will always remain? And how can it be that the path I have yet to travel is already mapped out? But you are looking at the trajectory of the point from above. So there is nothing surprising to you. The space of variance serves as a template. It determines how the material realization should manifest itself. Imagine a dark forest and a man with a flashlight. A man walks through the forest and illuminates a small area around him. The realization appears as a point of light. The entire dark forest is the space of variance, and the illuminated area is the implementation of the variant in this area. What is the backlight? In other words, what turns on, that is, materializes a variant of the template. To answer this question, we will have to take another starting point. In our time, there is no longer any doubt that thoughts are material. Reality shows itself to us in two ways. On the one hand, being determines consciousness, and on the other, there is undeniable evidence to the contrary. Thoughts are not only a motive for human actions, but also have a direct impact on the surrounding reality. For example, our worst expectations tend to come true. Of course, one can argue that it is not the materialization of thoughts that takes place here, but a premonition of future problems. Indeed, in the paranormal, there are many things that are unclear and ambiguous. But this does not mean that this form of manifestation of reality can be ignored. There are many facts. In one way or another, a person's consciousness shapes their destiny. Throughout the book, we talk about how exactly all this happens. As a starting point, we will take the following statement. The emission of mental energy induces the material realization of the variant. We have every right to do this, since reality also manifests itself in a way in which consciousness determines reality. This is confirmed not only by facts from everyday life, but also by experiments in quantum physics. For us, the very mechanism of interaction of mental radiation with the space of variance is not of fundamental importance. So far, it is unclear how the process of information transfer goes, on an energetic basis or on some other basis. For convenience, we will simply assume that the emission of mental energy highlights a certain sector of the space of variance, as a result of which the variant receives its material embodiment. Radiation, like the sector, has certain parameters. One should not forget that this is only one of the forms of manifestation of reality. It is impossible to simply sit and form your reality by mere contemplation, although there are people who can literally bring about the materialization of objects out of thin air. But there are very few such people, and they do not advertise their abilities. And yet thoughts have just as strong an influence on a person's destiny as their concrete actions. People are accustomed to actions having visible and easily explainable consequences. The influence of thoughts manifests itself imperceptibly and is therefore inexplicable and unpredictable. It may seem difficult to establish a visual causal relationship between thoughts and subsequent events. But soon you will see that human thoughts shape reality in a completely direct way. A person gets what they choose. Everyone follows their own path in life, and at the same time, all people live in the same world. The material world is the same for everyone, but each person's specific experience of it is different. Let's say you are a tourist walking through a beautiful city. You admire the views, admire the beauty of the architecture, see flower beds, fountains, park alleys, smiling faces of prosperous citizens. In the place where you are passing, a homeless person stopped near the trash can. He, like you, is in the same world and not in another dimension. And yet he does not see at all what you do. He sees an empty bottle in a trash can. He sees a dirty wall. He sees his competitor, who didn't have time to grab the bottle before and is now thinking of taking it away. He sees a policeman who narrowed his eyes suspiciously. You live on one lifeline and he lives on another. Your lifelines crossed at a point in the space of options. Therefore, this world, as a material realization, is one for both of you. All manifestations of material nature have an energetic basis. The energy field is primary. All other physical manifestations are secondary. Scientists are trying to combine different manifestations of energy into a single field theory, and they will soon succeed. However, again, you have to combine something, since the number of forms of manifestation of reality is infinite. We will not go into all these subtleties, and will consider energy as a kind of abstract force that is invisible but nevertheless exists objectively. For our purposes, it is sufficient to accept the fact that the energy of a person's thoughts is quite material. The energy of thoughts does not revolve, closed in a person's head, but extends into space and interacts with the surrounding energy field. For convenience, as a parameter of mental radiation, you can take your frequency, like the frequency of radio waves. When you think about something, the frequency of your thought energy tunes into a specific area in the space of variance. When energy enters the sector of the space of variance, a material realization of this variant arises. Energy has a complex structure and permeates everything in this world. Passing through the human body, energy is modulated by thoughts, and at the output, it acquires parameters corresponding to these thoughts. A radio transmitter works on the same principle. Energy parameters incorporate the characteristics of thoughts. Thus, the output is mental radiation, which transforms the sector of variant space into material realization. When you think about good or bad, you radiate thought energy into variant space. The modulated energy overlaps a specific sector, and this makes the corresponding changes in your life. Soon, dear, in the next issue, this somewhat abstruse and boring theoretical introduction to transurfing will end, and more interesting and lively things will begin.